911. We have oil everywhere.
There is an oil pipeline that runs through our yard, and it has ruptured, and it is spilling oil throughout the neighborhood.
In March this year, this quiet backstreet in Mayflower, Arkansas, became a torrent of foul-smelling crude oil. It flowed like a river down the gutters and into the drainage ditches. The stench enveloped the whole town.
It would take your breath away. You would have a metallic taste in your mouth. Your eyes would burn. Your throat would burn. Your lungs would burn. It was awful.
I was having a full-blown panic attack, and I was telling my mom, we gotta go, let's load up right now. She's like, where are we gonna go? I said, you have hotel points. Just go to a hotel. I don't care, just get out of here.
Can I help you?
It turned out that an oil pipeline ran under the town. It had ruptured, and the locals were exposed to a toxic mixture of chemicals. The burst Pegasus Pipeline was carrying crude oil for Exxon on a 1,400-kilometer journey from Illinois to Texas. So it became Exxon's responsibility to respond.
You know, at first they said it was crude oil, and they had their cleanup crew here walking out in this stuff, wearing muck boots and you know, no masks, you know, to help, you know, protect them from all the chemicals. No gloves, nothing. Then this full hazmat team comes in, you know, wearing, you know, the face masks and the goggles and the gloves.
Ruptured oil pipelines are by no means a rare event in the United States. In 2010, the Kalamazoo River in Michigan was flooded with over 3 million litres of crude oil. It took the company responsible 17 hours to discover the break in the pipeline before they shut it down. US federal records show there are more than 100 significant oil spills every year.
This is ground zero. They have made some people move back into their homes. They have taken some of the fencing down. See those fences they have put up to keep us from being able to see all the work that they're doing behind there.
Mayflower residents want Exxon to explain what happened to the pipeline. Genevieve Long took me on a tour of the town she's lived in her whole life.
These homes were the homes that were evacuated. The initial rupture happened in between these two homes where you see the green fencing.
The rupture in the highly pressurized pipeline was over 6.5 meters long.
You see a truck out there now.
For some time, Exxon refused to explain the cause of the break.
No information. They're not forthcoming with that.
And they declined Dateline's request for an interview. But they did respond to our written questions.
The root cause of the failure can be attributed to original manufacturing defects, namely hook cracks near the seam. There are no findings that indicate internal or external corrosion contributed to the failure.
Exxon told Dateline the pipeline that burst in Mayflower was inspected 1 month before the rupture, but the results of that test are not yet available. Like many Mayflower residents, Anne Jarrell is seriously concerned about her health. Her house is just 300 meters from the spill. Local police advised her to stay put because no oil touched her property. But then her daughter and grandson got sick, and she was told by her doctor not to go back home.
We've got major health problems in Mayflower, and no one is doing anything about it. My daughter has accused me of becoming obsessed with it, and it's like, well, you know, I'm worried about my grandson, I'm worried about you, I'm worried about me, and nobody, you know, nobody's doing anything.
Her daughter Jennifer has moved away from the home too, but she checks in once a week to make sure everything's okay. But there's no way she's letting her son Logan play outside.
He doesn't ever go outside. I mean, if he's outside, we're carrying him because I don't want him to get some of the grass or any of that, because anything that he touches goes straight to his mouth. Well, then my mom found her bees were dead.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And she tried to show the Exxon people that, and they didn't really want to hear it. They were just like, oh, well, you know, it happens.
Her bees were very important to her, and I didn't realize how important they were until she realized they were dead, and she was very upset about it.
Most of the residents that I have spoken to have specifically stated that they do not want to live back in these homes because there's no way to physically guarantee that their family won't get sick later on.
I'm getting two bears to hang right here.
My two youngest have had the most health issues due from wheezing, nausea, vomiting, migraine headaches, joint pains.
Dad built this. Watch your head.
She has had documented lung function that has dropped since the beginning of this year.
Frappuccino or not?
We asked Exxon whether the chemicals that the people of Mayflower were exposed to posed a risk to their health.
Monitoring data have shown levels that are either non-detect or below action levels established by the Arkansas Department of Health.
And we asked what were those chemicals?
Benzene, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide and other vapours.
Quite a heavy mix. Hydrogen sulfide is a poisonous, corrosive, flammable and explosive gas, and benzene is a known carcinogen. Mayflower's pipeline problem began here, hundreds of kilometres away in Alberta, Canada. These are the tar sands of the Wabasca oil fields. It's from here the oil begins its underground journey through Mayflower and hundreds of other American towns to the refineries on the Gulf Coast. The oil extracted here is so thick it needs to be diluted with toxic chemicals to make it flow smoothly through the pressurized pipeline.
It might be markers where they want to do sediment testing.
Genevieve and others here accuse Exxon of never really taking the cleanup seriously.
Remember that white stuff we saw last time?
They go out regularly to take their own samples and have them tested.
See it? All over. These are all tar balls.
Yeah.
You can visibly see the lines of the oil running through these slicks. It automatically attached to my hands.
6 months since the spill, Genevieve is still finding plenty of oil in the water. But the problem is not what's on top, it's what might be on the bottom.
In this incident, the Wabasca heavy that was spilled at Mayflower floated because it had a specific gravity less than that of water.
This is an important video, everybody. And the reason why it's so important is because it's about proving that tar sand oil is in the mud underneath the water.
John Bolimbaugh calls himself an environmental whistleblower with a special interest in tar sands oil.
And that's proof. It's under the water. Now listen.
His pictures clearly raise questions about Exxon's claims that the oil spilled in Mayflower floats.
This is in the area that they're not cleaning anymore. Do you see any boom? They're done cleaning.
From the air, you can see the cove that leads to Lake Conway, next to residential Mayflower. Exxon claims its cleanup team contained the oil spill here, but locals say that's simply not true.
The oil spill happened over here, okay, in the neighborhood.
Jason Thompson knows this area intimately.
It crosses underneath the old highway, under the interstate, into this cove, okay? And this cove is where it all stopped, supposedly.
He says heavy rain after the spill pushed both water and oil from the cove into the lake. Exxon says the booms it put in place in the cove were successful in stopping that.
Water sampling confirms the main body of Lake Conway remains oil-free.
Perhaps Exxon needs to take samples from the bottom of the lake. Shortly after the spill, Jason was fishing well past the cove and his lure told the story.
I had a white spinnerbait and it was just caked in oil. All the skirt on my spinnerbait was all stuck together and it was just real nasty smelling. I don't have friends up for fish fries anymore. You know, if we do, we go buy the fish from somewhere, you know, or they bring it with them, you know, from their previous catches somewhere else.
Thousands of pipelines crisscross the United States. In theory, their safety is monitored by a federal government agency, but it struggles to deal with its workload.
Well, the nation's pipeline network has been subject to benign neglect over most of its last 20 years, 30 years.
Ed Hurst is a lecturer on energy economics at the University of Houston.
The academic research, the economic research shows that these pipeline owners are not given enough return to have an economic incentive to maintain maintenance, to maintain capital investment in these pipelines. And so there is a disincentive, if you will, for them to keep the pipelines up until a disaster occurs.
Well, I've now left Mayflower and I'm heading through Texas, following the route of the Pegasus Pipeline. We're just up ahead here. It meets up with the biggest pipeline of them all, Keystone XL. Just outside Winsboro, I'm dropping in at a farm where the huge new pipeline is already in the ground.
I'm glad you made it safely.
All right. So, check out some pipelines, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go see what we're up against. This property came into my family back in the wagon train days. My grandfather's grandfather first bought this piece of land.
Jerry Hightower now believes his grandmother didn't make a great deal when she granted permission to lay the pipeline on her land.
They have placed these wonderful markers right on top of where the pipe is.
It's a short drive to where the Keystone XL crosses the Pegasus Pipeline that burst in Mayflower. So we're now walking on top of the pipeline?
We're now walking on top of the Keystone XL pipeline.
And where was it buried?
They have been working on this stretch of pipeline for a little over a year. This creek is running parallel with the Pegasus Pipeline and crosses the Keystone XL. So to envision a rupture of the Keystone XL right here, then it's just going to pick up straight with the flow.
I'm Tom Steyer. I evaluate investments and help companies grow.
Billionaire investor and hedge fund manager Tom Steyer says Keystone doesn't make economic sense.
Here's the truth. Keystone Oil will travel through America, not to America. Foreign oil companies will make nearly $4 billion off Keystone. You don't have to dig deep on Keystone to see. It's a bad deal for America.
Stop the pipeline!
In the fossil fuel processing capital of the world, Houston, activists are taking their protest to the company building Keystone XL, TransCanada.
My name is Susan, and I'm an American concerned about our environment.
Much of the protest is based on the huge carbon footprint of tar sands oil extraction. It's widely understood the process of cleaning the oil from the sand is too energy intensive.
You'll be taken to the county jail.
It's now something protesters are prepared to go to jail for.
Stop the pipeline!
It seems to me that the national discussion on Keystone Pipeline has outstripped its importance.
Ed Hurst wonders why there's so much fuss about this particular pipeline.
We have thousands of miles of crude oil pipelines, thousands of miles of refined products pipelines, hundreds of thousands of miles of natural gas pipelines, including the ones going to everyone's home. And we don't see a lot of opposition to these. These are economic necessities for all of us.
For the people up north who think the TransCanada pipeline is still a dream, that this thing may one day exist, it exists. It exists right here in my yard. They've got a big steel sign right over the top of a 3-foot diameter pipe in my yard.
In Houston last week, Jerry took his message directly to the director of the Keystone Pipeline project at a demonstration outside his house.
I'm here to have my voice heard and let you know that this is not okay.
You know, there's nothing the United States can do to prevent the Canadians from harvesting this natural resource. That oil is going to be produced, and the Canadians, if they're shut out of bringing it to the United States by pipeline, will build pipelines to either the west or to the east to export that oil. That oil may very well come back to the United States by tanker around California or down the East Coast.
In the end, the argument really isn't about pipelines, but about our insatiable thirst for oil. While that lasts, there will be more disasters like Mayflower and Kalamazoo. For some, they're the least worst alternative.
With a pipeline, a rupture in a pipeline, as we saw in Arkansas with an Exxon pipeline, sure, it's a mess, and it's all there for the television cameras to see, but it's relatively easier to clean up than a spill that's going across the Gulf of Mexico or across the Atlantic. The impact is contained and it's localized.
That's not an argument that consoles Jerry Hightower.
There's no technology to clean up the spills of this stuff. It's released into the air, it's released into the ground, it's released into the water. It goes everywhere, and there's no technology to clean it.